I've realized watching these after I publish that the opening portion is can take a while to actually start. So figured some filler conversation, then I get to the beginning intro. Welcome back. This is the Maturity Project. I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears for some, if you know, you know. And today's conversation is on what makes you precious. I think we're right about 8 billion people on the planet right now, so there's 8 billion of us. And there are a significant amount of similarities between all of us. And then there are the characteristics that we develop that make us more unique. That we have, that we have control over. Now you have your genetic predispositions that may make you better at things. And some people are so incredibly honed in on certain attributes or certain traits that they are significantly good at it. And then they stand out, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't be in the world of if you want to say competition, that's fine. If you can't, you don't, like for me, I'm not going to say you can't be in the world of competition and those traits just because somebody has a very significant development genetically because of, the way that, their parents and their ancestry and how we all adapt, as we pass on our genes to our environment, things like that. So, yeah, sure. That's out there. But then again, they say, I'd rather have somebody who has the will to work than talent alone. A lot of coaches will say that because what happens when you get talent alone, they don't apply themselves as hard and as well. They typically, on average, they don't have the work ethic because they were gifted in a way that things were a little bit easier for them as they were growing up. So they realized they didn't have to try as hard against their competitors as they were growing up. So they ended up with, a lower work ethic because they didn't have to do as much. And they weren't encouraged by their authorities in a way that was impactful to get them to really push and put their effort into it. Like we can say that Michael Jordan is a gifted man, but his work ethic is one of the strongest that's out there. And that's what, when we talk about Michael Jordan being an amazing basketball player and an amazing athlete, we talk about the fact that he has work ethic beyond nearly like most people. The good thing about that is that we all have access to that work ethic. We just have to realize where we lose it and how do we retrain ourselves so that work ethic become more capable and prominent in your life. It's a process, man. Nothing changes overnight. I highly suggest don't try to change everything overnight. That's a lot. There's a thing called transition stress that takes place. I refer to it as transition stress. And that's anytime you change something in your life, there is a stress related to that transition of change. You have the previous existence of the things necessary to be who you were, and or at who you are at the time that you're becoming somebody different by changing something. So there's stress associated with that because you have a certain method for being successful that those particular traits support. So, there's a lot of examples to go here, but I don't want to detract too far. But just know that you have a specific set of skills that you develop, and those skills and habits are supportive of those skills for a specific behavior that you have. So, you have a habit of going to the bar to just release it and let go of stress or steam. Well, the reason why I personally do not use alcohol or the bar or going out as my method to alleviate the pressure of stress or the upsets and the challenges that I've gone through is because my preference is to take whatever I'm going through, the challenges, the stress, all of that stuff, is to take it, realize that is frustration that is creating that stress. And that frustration is a fuel source for me. And I can either keep it in the gas can and then eventually it just catches on fire and burns me up. because that's what happens when you do nothing with stress. You just sit there or you ruminate on it and you're not doing anything with it. It burns you up. You're using that energy against yourself. Or you put it into a vehicle, right? Like you want to get from one place to another. Well, manifest or create a vehicle. Manifest in a way like, okay, well, a car is in front of you, but you take that fuel and you put it into a vehicle to take you someplace. So whenever I get stressed, I look at it and say, okay, what do I need to put work in? And I'm going to assign this stress, this frustration, to the work necessary to break that habit that has me feeling that stress in the first place. What do I not know? What do I need to know? What have I done that's ineffective? And what can I do to increase the effectiveness of that? So that's my method. That's why I do not use any of those habits to eliminate or alleviate stress. I want to use it by my choice, not by inherited values. The majority of people don't go to the bar to drink just because that's how they created a stress coping mechanism. It's because society has created an avenue for people to see that as an option. Now, that is very few people get there. Now, obviously, somebody had to get there because people are doing it, and there's a habit that's been formed that people follow suit with. But the point of it is that I don't stress like that. So there's transition stress that occurs. I look for it because it is going to make me better, because I know how to utilize that stress. So what makes you precious? What makes people value who you are? Because that's what precious is a value of something. And typically it's a value of something with rarity, because precious is often assigned to things that are rare, uncommon. Well, you can be common, you can do what other people do, and you can get the results other people have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the way you want to live your life. But I live my life to break those habits and break those patterns that give people other opportunities. So I have my own. I've become aware of them. I have what I have created as a coping mechanism in my unconscious state, but they're not things that most people would recognize. You'd have to have a trained therapist typically to find out exactly what those things are. A psychologist, preferably, not a psychiatrist. I'm not a big fan. Not to say that they're not valuable, but I don't want to go on a tangent about psychology and psychiatry. But I've studied and I appreciate the field of psychology to a great degree up until modern times, academia, because I spit on that garbage, because it's been hijacked by politics and this incredibly stupid agenda, the woke agenda, which is actually a communist agenda. But anyway, not to go down that track right now. But that's why I chose not to continue and complete my degree. But I'm not here to do psychology. That is not what I do with this channel. I am here to talk about maturity and the 8 different areas. So if you want to become precious, you have to understand exactly what it is that creates that value that other people see as uncommon, and that it is indeed valuable. So to them, not just in general, but to them, precious also is directly associated with personal value. Do you like that thing? And if you like that thing, you can associate that to precious. Now, if you were to use that as a way of understanding the linguistic values of that word so that it can create better opportunities for you to motivate you. Because my thing is this, 1% change on a daily basis will change your life. 1 year, if you're going 1%, you've changed yourself by an entire year, 365 days, depending on whether or not you have a leap year or not. But the point of it is, now, you have given yourself some form of change that stays consistent. A drop in the bucket eventually fills the bucket. Also, the great thing about it is, if it's a drop in the bucket and you stay consistent with your goals, but you give yourself the privilege of doing it at a 1% on a daily basis, now sometimes you'll take on a little bit more. My caution is, how much transition stress can you take on, and what's your threshold for risk? So I have a very high threshold for risk. So I take on risks that average people won't take on. Now, I'm 44. I'm here. If I've made it to this point and I've taken on leaving careers, I've left this point 3 different careers because it wasn't where my heart lies. My heart lies in this, and this education, and creating opportunities for people to, take the next step in life. Where do I measure against others out there? Well, I mean, that's up to you. But my goal is to sit amongst, to attribute value to the masses like some of the greats do. Tony Robbins is an example. Jordan Peterson is an example. Joe Rogan is an example. People like that I greatly value because they're out for autonomy. They're out for self-responsibility. They're out for growth and development. And they're out for breaking the pattern of groupthink so that you can have a fulfilled life. If you think you're going to have a fulfilled life because of the behaviors that you have that associate with other people that have you in a group and identified as a group, you're going to find that you're very unfulfilled in that world because you don't have autonomy to really associate much value. So now you can have degrees of value. I'm not saying you won't have that, but fulfillment is a bigger conversation than just some values, just some rewards. I was part of this thing. Sometimes the only reason why you feel benefited by being a part of something is the hysteria around it, not the actual true impact. Or you leave the actual outcome of that particular thing, like, whatever it is, you pick the group thing, whatever people are involved in, and then you don't realize the long-term consequences of what that thing was and how evil it actually was. I won't say some of the organizations, but we were attacked as a nation by one of them in 2019, 2020. It is an attack. But anyway, I won't get into that. I want to stick with just on point with what makes you precious. So being a free thinker is a valued thing that a lot of people do appreciate because it separates you from others. Going against the grain, also not a bad thing. And you do not need to agree with people all the time. I value those people that don't agree with me all the time. Now I value everybody too. And then looking at the values overall, what contributes to my life, how I contribute to their life, and what we do to contribute to humanity and the world. And I look for the beneficial values each person has instead of trying to diminish them because they're not like me. So what makes you precious? Figure that out. It's going to be incredibly beneficial for you because you can find what makes you fulfilled in that. Graham Cochran is another gentleman that I've been listening to recently, and he's an interesting guy from Tampa, Florida, or at least he lives in Tampa, Florida now. And he just talks about make a living doing what you love. And intellectual properties is the thing that I've chosen, and I've been on this since I was a kid, really. I've always wanted to help people in a way that I didn't do it for them, but gave them insights in order to shift things in their life. So have them forge their own diamond. If you forge somebody's diamond for them, you might be putting the wrong suit on them. You might create the wrong one. It'll be a flawed diamond because it has to be something they want, and as a whole. It is perfectly fine to help them, but you have to understand when you do it for them versus help them do it by giving perspectives and the right resources in order to be successful. You can scaffold around them, if you will, in order to get them to that next place, but you do not want to do it for them in a way they become dependent. And there's a lot of interesting things about human nature that make us dependent. So I prefer to just give insights and then give some coaching around what those insights actually mean to each individual and how to utilize that so you understand exactly how to use those tools, much like go into the tool shed. A ratchet could drive a nail, but what damage happens to a ratchet, and also what damage happens to the surface of whatever you're putting the nail in, and how effective is it, and does the nail actually drive all the way in? But a hammer is better. Well, if you just look at what the purpose of a nail versus a screw is, well, you could use a drill and you could drive a nail in. But again, what damage has happened to the drill? What damage has happened to the surface of whatever that is that you're using for the nail, or the nail to fix? Or is it the wrong tool? A lot of us have that. We're using the wrong tools, but we didn't have anybody to show us or to teach us that it was the wrong tool. We figured this stuff out, and what I would consider, we figured this out in a feral way, meaning that it was done outside of the organized structure that is common about really developing people. So you just have to make the call about what exactly you want, and then you kind of look for, and kind of really, my goal is to have the right tools by insights and perspectives, not tell you you're using the wrong tool. I can tell you that it looks like it's inefficient. I can tell you that, you could probably find something more effective. Or if it's the hammer and you're using the handle side of it to drive the nail, that too can work. But again, what damage happens to the tool and what damage happens to the surface and area of what you're fixing the nail to. So you really can be helped by looking at it from a tool perspective if that works for you, because, and I hope that it does, is it's a great analogy in my opinion. You really can create something great with this method. You just have to understand what the hell it is you want to create. So as far as that's concerned, we look at what exactly do you currently have, what tools are you currently, what do you have in your tool set, and are you using those most effectively? And then, just like any handyman, they start off with a basic set of skills, and then they go off and they buy specialty tools. Well, I want to help you develop those specialty tools. And that's specialty tools in thinking and specialty tools in being. So I do not do therapy. I'm not doing counseling. None of that stuff. That's not my responsibilities. My thing is insight on who I am and how for it to be functional, and to offer that to you for you to see how precious you truly are. Diamond. And how do you get to make a billion people go to extremes to have just a glimpse of it? It's your call, man. It is. But if you want your relationships to be a repeat of all previous relationships, or even variations of those relationships, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? The only way you associate right and wrong is based off of your personal goals and how that works in society. Because society will still have the right and wrong. That's why we have our criminal system, our judicial system that has, crime values and things like that, because that's against society. You got to have those things in parameters, because you can't be so irresponsible that you find yourself in trouble with the law, because that's societal. But the right and wrong for you and the decisions that you make, if you use that, say, okay, I'm not going to do anything that would violate the law. Okay, good. Now we can get to some ground that we can work from. And then from that, what specifically do you want to experience in this life? Do you want to travel? Okay. How do you want to travel? Because you can travel without paying any money, but your travel accommodations are going to be incredibly challenging, because you're likely going to be walking everywhere, or hitchhiking, or utilizing others, kindness in order to transport yourself. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It can be pretty uncomfortable. You may be sleeping out, in the open, and you may not have a room. You may not have the comforts that we become accustomed to. But you see that is something that's possible. Then there is, okay, do you want to travel with high-end luxury? Okay, well, that's going to cost you money, but it doesn't guarantee it's going to be money. It may be relationships that get you to that. And what kind of relationships do you have in order to be able to get to that point? So there's a lot when it comes to this, but that's how I like to do this whenever it comes to understanding exactly how to give people insights. Not tell them what to do, but to share to be an insight to be successful. Now, unfortunately, I'm getting a lot of calls right now. I'm going to have to actually end the session, the recording. But with that, I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears. I apologize about the urgency here, but I've received 2 work calls that were back to back. So this is the Maturity Project. Search Chad Everett Broshears if you know, you know. Now, this has been about finding out what's precious. We're going to have to do several videos on this to help you understand a little bit more, to give insights on, to help inspire to get to that next thing, to create the diamond that you are. With that, again, share this video with the people in your life you want to break the ice with. Thank you for your patience and accommodations as I go through this to become better and better by practicing and putting out content. I do appreciate that. Everything takes practice, and if you expect perfection from somebody, but it can be a real hard challenge for you and for the person that's seeking to create some sort of impact on life. So thank you for your patience with that. Until next time, again, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment in the comment section what you're getting out of it. And if you feel that you have contribution to help this grow, by all means, please comment in the comment section. I'll get in touch with you one way or another, and we'll figure out where we can go from there. Okay. Until next time, we got a world to address and we got a world to get to, but we got to work on ourselves first, because the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And right now we're creating a super highway there. So we got to do something to disrupt that if we want the future to be, more utopic for everybody. But we got to be mature to get there. All right, until next time. See ya. Let's get to it.